Hi guys, my name's Harry and this is my first proper YouTube video. Today I want to talk about poetry and why I like poetry, especially Latin and Greek poetry from the ancient world, from Greco-Roman society. I'm going to do this in this video by specifically looking at a word in Latin, Carmen, which means a song, as well as it being a fairly popular name in our modern times. I think this world is so powerful because through its meanings, it just tells us why poetry and literature are so important and the power they have. But firstly, a bit more of an intro. So my name's Harry. I love literature, reading, art, music. I studied classics and modern languages, specifically French, at the University of Oxford. I also studied at the University of Cambridge. About a year ago, I started an Instagram page called Harry's Poetry. And as of today, I have about 55,000 followers. And every day I make a video about Latin poetry, about a Latin word, a Latin phrase. And I do this really to try and make Latin and Roman and Greek culture more accessible to people because it's seen as quite an elitist subject if you didn't attend a fee-paying school. But also, and mostly, I love making the lessons from Roman history, Roman literature, poetry, and Greek literature as well. I love making these lessons and these insights accessible and important for our modern day society, transforming them to how they can be useful for our own modern day. I've been uploading reels on YouTube before, but now my aim is to do one video, a proper video on YouTube a week. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to the process to continue improving. Please let me know in the comments if you give me any feedback or things which don't look so good, which I could change. I know I gesticulate a lot, and I know a lot of people don't like this mic I use. But yeah, please give me any feedback you have. Okay, so let's look at the word Carmen. So of course, it's a name, and I'm sure you know celebrities with the name Carmen. But Carmen is a Latin word, carmenis, in the genitive singular, and this means a song or a poem. It's something that would either be put to music or recited, like a poem by Wordsworth or Byron or Virgil, who I'll talk about later on. However, Carmen has a secondary meaning in its semantic field, and this meaning is the idea of it being a magic spell or a charm. In fact, in English, we get our words to charm or charm from the Latin word Carmen, which I think is really interesting. I've always found it fascinating that a song or a poem, as well as being enjoyable to listen to or read, can have a power, an almost hypnotizing effect. It can produce a feeling or an action within people that we can't quite understand. And there's a great story in Greek mythology about the power of song, music, and poetry, and this is the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. So at that time, Orpheus is the world's best musician, poet, and singer. He can literally make rivers go backwards in their course and change nature through his songs. He's adored by everyone, by animals. Imagine, I think it's Snow White in the Disney film, where all the animals come and sort of sit on her and listen to her sing. That is what Orpheus was doing. Orpheus was the originator of that effect. Eurydice is his beloved, his girlfriend, and one day she steps back onto a snake which bites her and she perishes. Orpheus, of course, is devastated. He mourns her greatly. He stops singing. However, knowing the power of his songs and of his poetry, he decides to go down into the underworld and take her back. The official term for a descent into hell is called a catabasis, and it's a great word I like to use in my day-to-day life. When Orpheus goes down into the underworld, he's able to hypnotize, to transfix the monsters that live there. He manages to take back Eurydice and bring her back into life. However, if you know the myth, you'll know that this doesn't actually work out perfectly, because Hades, the god of the underworld, gives him a condition and says that you can take her back as long as you don't look back at her, don't turn around and look at her until you've completely left hell. And what does Orpheus do? He thinks she might have got stuck, and he looks back and she fades from his eyes, and he tries to grasp her, but it's too late. She disappears. So this is the myth about the power of poetry. And some of my favorite Roman poets living in Roman times, are great and really encapsulate this. Number one, we've got Ovid. And Ovid, he was living in the reign of the Emperor Augustus. His poetry was mostly amatory. It was love poetry. He's got a great poem called the Amores, the Heroides, and also a great epic work called the Metamorphoses, which is really brilliant. But mostly he was famed for writing these sentimental, cheeky poems about love. And he was an absolute celebrity in Rome. The most famous poet there, he loved it. He's got a great line where he says, Nunc aurea Roma est, which means now Rome is golden. He thought Rome was the center of the universe, the best place to be in the best period of time ever. Ovid's poetry was so powerful that it actually ended with him being exiled from Rome because it was causing such a stir in the power communities and with Augustus. The poem which caused him to be exiled is the Ars Amatoria, which is Latin for the art of loving. And this told people how to go out into Rome and meet other people to have an affair with. And this went directly against Augustus' moral policy. Ovid was exiled and he spent the rest of his life on the Black Sea coast in modern-day Constanta, Romania, which was then, at that time, called Tomis. He has a famous line in his exile poetry where he details the reason for his banishment. Carmen et error, which means a song, a poem, and a mistake. So as we see from Ovid, back in these Roman times, his poetry was so powerful, it caused such a stir and affected the leading and the ruling classes so much that it made him become exiled. Virgil is another one of my favourite poets. He is considered as the best poet from all of Roman times, and some consider him the best poet of all time. He wrote a work called the Aeneid, which is a mythological foundation epic for Romans, for Augustus. And Augustus desperately needed Virgil to sort of solidify his myth of why he should be ruling. If you haven't read the Aeneid, you should. I'm doing group classes on it in September. And it's about Aeneas and the journey of him and the Trojans from the fall of Troy, because Aeneas is one of the Trojan leaders, all the way to Rome, where he founds a new city and a new country for his people who have been displaced after the war. Augustus commissioned Virgil to write this, and he gave him so much money and so many honours, and now he's remembered forever, Virgil, because of this amazing poetic work, which you should definitely read if you have the time. And there's a great painting by Ingres, the French painter, of Virgil reading to Augustus and his sister Octavia, book 6 of the Aeneid. And you can see Octavia weeping because of a mention of her late son in Virgil's work. But these poets, because of their knowledge of the power of the Carmen, of poetry, of music, their legacy lives on, and they're still famous to this day. In a sense, they have transcended death as their name remains immortal. And to an extent, this is exactly what's happening in our own day-to-day society, with poets and authors being censored for the ideas that they rouse in the people, and corrupt politicians wanting to shut them down, and also rappers. The reason why rappers, as many psychologists and philosophers say, why they're so popular is because of their ability to speak their eloquence, to transmit ideas and art, and to do it so skillfully. I want to say that there is deep beauty, but also power in poetry, literature, music, and art. I hope you enjoyed my video. It's quite introductory, but I really wanted to start doing this, and I'll do a video every week henceforth. Like and subscribe if you want to, and you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Harry's Poetry.